What if you could leave here with a new awareness about your legacy that you didn't have when you arrived? Good morning. My name is Angelina Carleton. I'm the hostess to the Designing Your Legacy podcast. And this lovely Saturday morning, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Kevin Palmieri. He is the CFO, founder, and co host of Next Level University, a global top 100 self improvement podcast with more than 1,100 episodes reaching over 650,000 people in more than 125 countries. He believes in a heart-driven, but no BS approach to holistic self-improvement and teaching others how to get to the next level of their lives. Welcome, Kevin.
Angelina, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the wonderful introduction and happy Saturday morning.
Yes. This is a good way to start a day.
I agree.
And so let me jump in. You're joining us today from New Hampshire on the other side of the country.
Yes.
And my first question to you is, what excites you about life now? Because my first impression is you've been just blowing through your milestones and just hitting new achievements. So what say you about what excites you now in life?
I would say what excites me now is number one, I'm married. So I got married 4 months ago, which thank you so much, which is a whole new thing. I mean, it doesn't seem super new because I knew I was going to marry my wife long before we got married, but that's something I'm super excited about. And then I would say we're at the point now where we've actually built up a community and we actually have people listening to us. You're a podcaster, Angelina. You've started businesses. You understand in the beginning, nobody really cares that much. So we're at the place now where there's a lot of people in our community, and I'm very, very grateful that people take time out to tune into us every day.
Yeah, that's wonderful. There was an Instagram post that I saw the other day, and it was just so humorous. It said like the support, and it was like one person. And then it said like when you win, and there's like 1,000 people.
Yep. 100%. We call a lot of our listeners the OGs, like the original people who have been here since the beginning. We're very blessed. So we've had a lot of those, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned when I was doing my due diligence regarding a few of your other podcasts, you had mentioned that you will thank something that you want to arrive in your life. So you'll say something, this is maybe materialistic, but you'll say like, thank you for that sports car. And you'll just keep saying and meditating on it, almost to create a new reality tunnel. So
Yes.
since this is a legacy podcast, my question for you is, what are you the most grateful for today, come the end of your life, in thanking what is to come specific to your legacy?
I am grateful that we will have impacted over 1 billion people. That is, we're not podcasting for fun. We're podcasting for impact. And
Right.
it will, I won't say it will be a failure because it's not a failure. It's a journey and it's a mission and it's a lesson. But I will consider this very successful, this whole thing. And I will consider my legacy very successful if we can get to the point where we say we have impacted over 1 billion people around the world. That is something I am grateful for in advance.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's beautiful. And it's so crystal clear also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're very blessed to have the level of clarity that we have, but I think it's based on the fact that my business partner, Alan, and I, we both had life or death instances when we were 26.
Okay.
And that really reframes life for you. And it helps you understand what matters and what doesn't. And when you find your thing and you start practicing your thing and there's nowhere else you'd rather be, it really helps you hone that clarity more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. So that life and death experience, I might have you speak into it in a moment, but
Sure.
is it the awareness that tomorrow's not promised? Is it the awareness that, as cliched as it sounds, today is a gift, in embracing it, like carpe diem, like before your head hits the pillow, you knew you gave that day your all, compared to like just being negative. There's a lot of negativity in the world.
Yeah.
And some of it's justified and some of it is just people become addicted to negativity.
Mm. Yeah. I had a quote that I used to say that people say life is too short.
Okay.
I don't agree. I don't think life is too short. I think life is too long to do something you're doing. And I think that was really the realization I had was I'm so miserable doing what I'm doing every single day. Imagine if I actually had a love for life. Imagine if I was actually excited for today. Imagine if I was excited for tomorrow. Imagine if I wasn't saying, I'm going to do this for the next 10 years and then I'll be able to walk away and do what I really love. For me, it was achieving quote unquote success and realizing that I wasn't fulfilled and understanding that happiness is fleeting and fulfillment is the journey. It's the process. It's the goal. So I would say that was the big thing for me.
Okay. What was that quote again? Just in case I think my screen froze.
Oh my goodness. Now I got to remember it. So you'll hear many people say, Angelina, that life is too short.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I would say life is too short if you're doing what you love. But if you're
Okay.
doing something you don't enjoy, I would say life is way too long because you're very, very miserable doing what you love. And I don't want that for anybody. So that's the quote.
Okay. And that is profound because and I imagine you're in your 30s.
33.
Okay. And what a wise thing to realize at 33, because I know a number of elderly individuals that want to like prolong their life with stem cells, and a part of that makes me wonder, did they not get to do what they wanted to do?
Mm,
And
that's
now it's like,
great.
tell me what you're thinking with that look.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess you could look at either way, right? Maybe they realize now, you know what? I really wish I took better care of myself and I have so much more to accomplish and so much more to give and so much more legacy to create. Or they're saying, I really, really love my life. I really want to get another 20 or 30 years out of it. So I think there's always two sides of the same coin, and it all depends on what those people were doing for the last 15 or 20 years that set them up to where they are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is one of the reasons why I have this podcast, because I think today is the day that we need to talk about our legacy, not in
Mm-hmm.
the final year of our life or
Mm-hmm.
in the final decade. I mean, obviously the final decade is better than the final year, but definitely not like when somebody's about ready to transition over
Yeah.
and it's the woulda, coulda, shouldas.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's not a lot you can do when you're looking at the light at the end of the tunnel. There's not much you can do at that point. So I love it. I love the mission and I love the impact you're having.
cool, very cool. So what inspires you today to keep it on a positive tone?
I try to reflect often. And what I mean by that is I try to look back at the other times in my life where I would genuinely trade everything for the problems I have today. That's for me, one of the ways to stay positive is to realize how blessed I actually am. I have bad days like everybody else. I have bad weeks like everybody else, but my bad days and my bad weeks are higher quality than they used to be. And that's
Okay.
where I try to live. I try to live in that, and that helps me stay positive for sure.
Yeah. So what inspires you is your new set of problems.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that they're assuming that as we continue growing, our problems will become higher quality and higher quality. I remember, I mean, 5 years ago, Angelina, my problems were I couldn't pay my bills because I was a broke
Mm.
entrepreneur. Now it's how do I help more people? Like that's a great problem to have. So yeah, as long as you're evolving, hopefully your problems are evolving in quality as well.
Yeah. Well, I think what is inspirational about that is that you know that you've grown.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, because if you had had like the same Groundhog Day and it's 5 years later, it's like you're going to want to kick a wall.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're a podcaster, so you understand. You can look back at look at episode number 1.
Yeah.
How much have you changed, right? You've changed a lot, I'm sure, since episode 1. We got 1175 as of today. Like that's a lot of perspective and it's a lot of proof of how far we've come. So I'm so grateful that you have such a catalog of content where you can look back and say, oh, I remember what was going on there. I remember being single. I remember having a fight with my partner or whatever it is. It's just a lot of perspective.
Yeah. And I remember my Apple earbuds that kept hitting my hair and it'd be like, but I couldn't hear it.
Lessons learned.
Cool. Very cool. So, why is your legacy important to you at 33? And I also want to share that 80% of the listeners are male, and all around the world, and they're looking for guidance and knowledge in this area. Because
Mm,
if the schools aren't talking about it and their families aren't talking about it, the dining room table, we get to talk about it
mm.
and bring a new perspective. So, number one, why is your legacy important for you? And how do you define this word legacy?
My legacy is important for me because I understand most humans will not remember anything that I did, but they will all remember how I made them feel. That's why it's important to me, and that's why I try to be the person that I am. And what legacy means to me is legacy is the impact that you will have long after you've left the room. Not necessarily long after you've left this lifetime, but if you think of it, there's macro legacy and there's micro legacy. After I leave this conversation with you, Angelina, my hope is that you will feel appreciated, you will feel supported, you will feel seen, heard. I want my legacy with you to be Kevin was a good human being who made me feel good. right? That's a great little micro legacy to have. But if you build a lot of those micro legacies, that creates your macro legacy. So for me, it's the impact you have long after you've left, whether that's this earth and this reality or the room that you were just in.
Yeah. I'm almost hearing like just even the decency of being a good person in today's day and age.
Yeah.
Yeah, can speak mountains.
Mm. Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
core value. It's a core value. I think what your legacy really is, it's your core values, your core beliefs, and your core aspirations all meshed together and brought into the real world. And I think that's really where a lot of us get lost is if you want to figure out what your legacy is, check in on what your core values are. What do you value as a human being? Check in on your core beliefs. What do you believe as a human being? And then check in on your core aspirations. What do you hope to accomplish in this wild thing called life? And it's probably going to be a mesh of those things in that list. And then you can get to work on it.
Yeah, very cool. That's concise. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that one. Core aspirations and yeah, yeah. So should I bring up, your upbringing and any of the growing pains? Do you want to speak into that at all? Because my next question is, what are you the most afraid of now? But also I kind of want to go back and look in the rear view mirror. Probably what you're afraid of today is going to be very different than what you've transformed and journeyed through in your
Mhm.
rite of passage.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. So I'll give you a quick just context. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27.
In New Hampshire?
And what's that?
In New Hampshire?
I was raised in Massachusetts.
Okay, okay.
So just a state over. So I definitely grew up in a family that was lower middle income, lower middle class. We didn't have a lot of money. So that's always become and kind of tagged with me on this journey. I think the biggest thing that made a difference for me, Angelina, was I knew I didn't want to go to college. A lot of my friends, all of my friends knew they wanted to go to college. I knew I didn't. So I ended up making money and, switching jobs and switching careers and all that. But the thing that really always stuck with me, and I think the important piece to my journey is my biggest fear is failure. 100%, even today. Even before coming on this episode, my fear is that I will not do well. I will not add value. I'm not good enough to be here. I'll misspeak. That's always been my biggest fear. My biggest fear is failure, rejection, and being left behind. And it's gotten better. My relationship with those fears have gotten better, but those are the fears I've been fighting for the last 33 years.
And I just want to interrupt for a moment
Please.
because it's interesting. I would have to wonder if you came from, you had said lower middle class, if there was almost a scarcity mindset.
For sure.
Yeah. So therefore, it's almost like you could carry that with you of like not enough, being left behind. Like, what if they forget about me? What if I'm invisible? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you would have a sensitivity to that lifestyle, even if you live a different lifestyle today in your heart space.
There's a chip on your shoulder, or at least in my case, there's a chip on my shoulder. Is the chip running me, or am I using the chip as extra motivation? For a long time, it was running me. Now it's that extra thing I can tap into and say, oh yeah, remember how you never felt like you could do anything? Or remember all those people that doubted you? And again, that's dangerous because you're playing with the ego there, but that's a good question. A lot of us have these traumas or these problems or these pains in our past. You can use that pain as fuel, or you can use that pain as an anchor, depending on how your relationship with that pain is.
Yeah, that's great. It's almost like what comes to mind is the metaphor of the Black Panther, and he's just playing with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's the chip on the shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Putting
You
you on
got
the
to know the
shoulder
chip.
now.
You got to know the chip, know your chip. And if it's running you, it's time to shift for good.
Yeah. Say that last part again one more time for me, please.
It's important to understand what's your relationship with a chip? Is the chip running you, or are you running it? And if it's running you, you can run it for good.
Yeah. Yeah. Turn the tables. Yeah. One of the things about designing a legacy is somebody cannot have a victim mindset because they won't even open up, the book and put pen to paper because they'll be too much like, well, my chips are running me and you don't understand my chips. And
yeah, there's a level of belief that you must have if you're focused on leaving a legacy. Because if you don't have the belief that you're capable of doing it, you're already in scarcity of, well, who's going to remember me anyway? I mean, what's the point of doing this? Nobody's going to remember it. Versus I believe I can have some sort of impact on whatever it is. Therefore, the world will be a better place if I do this. Therefore, I must do this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes people also cover it over with a little bit of ego if
Mhm.
they can't find the courage to look at those chips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did too, of course, right? Like I was a very angry child who had anger issues, and I was never violent towards other people really, but I definitely had a temper. And for a long time, it was, instead of looking at the fact that, oh, this lack and this non-relationship I had with my father, which I think has shaped me in many ways, is running my life to a detriment. How could I use that for positive? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's lovely insight right there.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Because if you can see that, then it sets you free.
Yeah.
And I think it
Awareness.
has. Yeah.
Awareness.
Yeah.
I just for context, and it will make it full circle. My dad, so flash, or if you throw back to when I was 27, so I'm 33 now. When I was 27, I was sitting on my couch. I opened up my Facebook app and I found this folder that you have where if somebody sends you a message and you're not friends with them, it goes to this folder. I open up this folder. I don't know why I was cleaning out my Facebook, but I saw a message and it said, "Hey, Kev, I'm blank. I'm your father's girlfriend." And I
Okay.
remember I threw my phone on the floor and I said, no, 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 nope, not doing this today. We're not doing it. But I was curious, so I picked up my phone.
How many
Oh,
years had it been?
um, I don't even remember. I didn't know my dad. So
Oh,
in theory, it was 27 years.
oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay,
In
okay.
in theory. Now I saw him when I was younger, but I wasn't capable of understanding that's my father. It was just, I don't remember that time. So I say, you know what? I'm going to be brave. Let me open it up. I open up the message. "Hey, Kev, this is blank. I'm your father's girlfriend. He just wants me to let you know that he has been seeing what you're doing and he's very proud of you. And if you would ever want the opportunity to meet him, here's his number and we can set something up." And I remember I threw my phone on the floor. I fell on the floor. I started crying because for the longest time, I had this giant ego of, I don't care about this man. I don't care if he's living. I don't ever want to meet him. When it's not an option to meet him, it's very easy to say those things. It's very easy to say until you have the opportunity to do it. So, long story short, I end up meeting my dad. We meet at a diner halfway between where we both lived. And Angelina, I remember I walked in and I said, I don't even know what my dad looks like. Like I don't even know how I'm gonna see him when he comes here. And
He's
I
gonna look
saw him.
like you.
Well, you think so, but then again, I don't know. You never know. So I see a man walk by the window of the diner, and I was like, "That's my dad." And I don't know how I knew. I just said, "That's my dad." He came, he sat down, he cried a bit. It was as weird as you can imagine, but I remember leaving there, and this really helped me. I remember leaving there, and I don't mean any ego with this, but I saw a man who was far less aware than I. He had a far lower self-improvement set point than I. He had faced a lot less fears than I. I just saw a very underdeveloped man. And that helped me understand, look, Kev, it's nothing you did. This isn't your fault. It was just somebody who was going through life and they had this experience and that experience happened to touch you in this way. Do not allow somebody who hasn't done as much work on themselves as you have to villainize and be the villain in your life. Don't allow them to influence you in that way. And that was a very important step for me for sure.
Yeah, that's deep and profound. I think also the prior generations didn't always have these like self-reflective, self-development, personal development type of conversations. Like when
Yeah.
I had confronted my dad and I'm like, yeah, I want to write a legacy book about you. And I'm like going to these deep questions. He's like, we didn't talk about those things growing up. I wouldn't
Mm,
have asked those things to my dad. And I'm like, oh, well, it's 2022 there.
yeah. Yeah. A lot has changed. A lot has
Yeah.
changed.
But and I
Yeah.
also have to wonder if you may have felt, and I'm just throwing this out intuitively, almost like, what if you outgrew him? What if he
Oh, I
stopped
definitely outgrew him.
growing? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to the point where I decided against furthering the relationship with my father because my understanding is, number one, there's no possible way you understand what my life actually looks like. Like, if you don't know what a podcast is, you can't possibly understand what I'm doing. That's part one. Part
Okay.
two, And I'm sure you understand this, Angelina. And again, no ego with this. I'm not necessarily the type of person that you can just call and I'm going to answer. Like, I'm busy. I
Okay.
don't have my phone. I'm working. I work every day. Right. So there were things where I understood, look, this relationship is never going to be what my dad expects it to be. And honestly, I am very quick to ask myself a simple question. Is this sustainable? Yes or no? If it's not sustainable, I almost won't do it. That relationship wasn't sustainable.
Well, it's interesting because where you're at right now, it's like you've got like the momentum of the rocket ship and you've got this goal and the roller coaster's already climbing
Mm-hmm.
and you would almost have to decide. And I'm not suggesting per se role reversal, but it's almost like you would have to teach him. And I don't know if you want to be the dad.
Right. Correct. I don't. I don't.
Okay. I mean, you could do it, but it would take energy.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't, I don't think it's the best. And again, I know this sounds cold and calculated. I don't think it's the best use of my time. I think we're already on to something so magnificent. We're helping people. And to your point, we have momentum and it's the compound effect, exponential. I don't want to take the time because I don't ultimately believe it will be worth it for me. I don't think it will be.
Yeah. Well, that's a very intimate decision. Thank you for being so vulnerable
Of
to share
course.
it. Because
Of
there's a lot
course.
of fatherless homes and children that grow up and they have to kind of like figure things out
Mm.
and move forward and find new positive role models and also come to peace with if either A, they had a healing fantasy about a parent or B, um, realizing again that they may have outgrown the parent and then
Mm.
coming to peace with that also because sometimes you have this idea of like, oh, the parent is on like they're like a statue on the bookshelf and you put them up on this pedestal and then you kind of get to this place where it's like if you get through your rite of passages and you're like I don't want to say fully grown, but it's like when you've gotten to a place where you're really taking responsibility like
Mm.
and radical ownership of your life, it's almost like you don't need the gold star from your parent.
Yeah. Yeah. I think no matter what you're putting, if you had an absentee parent, I think you are putting them up on a shelf, whether it's a pedestal or a shelf. You're
Okay.
putting them somewhere because the reality and your expectations are usually drastically different. So either you're underappreciating or overappreciating, whatever, right? Whatever your version of that is. This is what I would say to anybody out there. I had somebody very close to me recently say, hey, I had a stepdad who I haven't seen since I was 14, and I think I need to see this person to heal these parts of me. And I said, number one, it might be the hardest thing you ever do. Number two, it might be the most important thing you ever do because it allows you, it's this weird thing, this weird opportunity that we never really get to go back into the past, adjust something, and then bring that back with us to the current.
Yeah, it changes the narrative.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me why you started Next Level University and or how are you developing your legacy today?
So I made six figures as a construction foreman,
Okay.
opened my final pay stub of the year. There it is, $100,000. Awesome. I realized that for that year and for most of my life, I had lived unconsciously. I'm just going through the motions, assuming, excuse me, assuming these things are going to fill the inner voids that I didn't realize I actually had. I started a podcast called the Hyper Conscious Podcast that ended up transitioning into Next Level University. So I started it for that reason. What we're doing today to further, to strengthen, to amplify, to specify our legacy is we're just producing as much content as humanly possible and trying to help as many people as humanly possible. And that all starts from a place of working on me. So every single day I try to get a little bit better because you cannot give what you do not yet have. So
Yes.
your legacy starts with you. And if I'm going to impact people, I must get better. I must get a little bit better. It's mastery, impact, profitability. So I must master myself and continue learning and growing. So that's what I'm doing.
And then you're able to be of service to others.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you conquer it within yourself, then you can lead, your listener or client. This is my metaphor through the woods to the canoe by the lake, like whether you're a Boy Scout or Girl Scout leader. That's kind of the metaphor. But unless you've done that inner work, you can't say like, look out for the poison ivy or look out for this or that, because it's like when it's in you, you know it like by rote memory. Like you know what the journey entails, you know what all of it means to even lead. Yeah.
You have to experience it to teach it. No, you don't have to, but I like to. For me, we never talked about money until we started making money. I can't do that. Like, I can't talk about, I'm a broke entrepreneur. I don't want to talk about teaching you how to make money. I need to show you first. And I need to show myself. I think that's an important thing, is experience allows you to teach through experience, not through imagination. It's important to have the experience.
Yeah, I want to say one other thing about entrepreneurship before I move on to the
Yeah,
next question.
please.
So I think a lot of times, and I'd love your feedback on this. It's like what in that roller coaster metaphor before. It's kind of like when you've got that momentum and your success. It's almost like you just have to like almost like ride the wave. It's
Mm.
like you just got to stay with that, and you can almost feel it energetically. Like you got to just keep feeding the fire and make sure you don't do anything to not feed the fire. But you also know that you've got like behind you, like you just climbed 16 floors.
Yeah. It's we have 3 rules, and these are Alan's 3 rules. Number 1, start the right train. Number 2, stop the wrong trains.
Mhm.
Number 3, never, ever, 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 ever lose momentum. I mean, if you want the keys to success in a nutshell, that's really what it is. And we know what the right trains are. It's just a matter, to your point, of getting rid of the wrong ones and throwing coal into the fires that are working. Like, how fast can you throw coal, and then making sure you never, ever lose momentum. So yeah, I would say that's very well said.
Yeah, yeah, very cool, very cool. I'll have to remember that. That's like an IG Instagram post right there.
It's all yours.
The right train, get rid of the wrong trains and keep the momentum. Very cool. Okay, so here's a deep question. What do you not trust enough today? And it was interesting because your associate Alan that you mentioned, your business partner, he said the word legacy, but I'd be curious, what is your word today that you don't trust enough?
I would say, and one of our mentors would love this. I don't know. Sometimes I think it's resilience. I have never quit tattooed on my arm, and that's like my one word is resilience. But I don't always trust it over the long run, right? Like, it's very easy to take pain in a short amount of time for me. Like, so sitting through a tattoo sucks. It feels bad, it hurts, right? But it's only 3 hours. It's not that bad. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes it's hard to be resilient when there is no light. There's no light at the end of the tunnel, right? We're going to do this forever for the next, I'm 33. Like, we're going to do this till I'm 80 at least. So I have
Okay.
another 47 years. That's a
Okay.
long, long, long journey. So, well, it's simple for me, or easy for me, to be resilient in the very short term. I think it scares me, the resilience it will take to do this for another, 10x what we've already been doing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you definitely have to keep putting fuel in your fire regarding self-care and
Yeah.
and whatever you need to do, like with your coaches and filling your tank, whether that's spiritual or going out into like your favorite like I don't know place in the woods or your safe
Mhm.
place or your holy place or whatever it is. But yeah, that's very interesting because I know that you were on a prior podcast and the host said to you, what if there's another 18 levels if you could trust resilience enough and you're smiling,
Yeah. I mean, I know there's way more than 18. That's the thing. I
right?
mean, there's a million. It
Yeah.
never ends, right? It never ends. I'm never going to get to the level and say this is the final level. Like, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, life is not a video game. It's not, it wasn't developed to get to this point and then stop. It's a never ending thing until you move on to whatever it is you believe happens after this. And who knows, you might start all over again. I do believe that I have leaned more into the understanding of what resilience means to me. And I do believe that's something that I'm slowly, I don't want to say conquering, but I'm slowly understanding, practicing, and mastering at a deeper level. So I do feel like I'm making progress on that, which is very, very positive, and it feels good.
Yeah. So if resilience is spiritual, what would you say to that? Let's say
I,
18 levels above it's spiritual. What would you say?
mm, it's probably, well, to your point, it's probably time to lean more into and connect more spiritually to everything, is what I would say. I tend to live very much in this world. Very, I don't know. I'm a very physical person. Like, I live in the physical world. It probably would benefit me to do more tapping into the spiritual world. And that's probably a sign of that.
Well, I just bring it up because for the long haul, like if you're like going to say, all right, 47 years and I've got to be resilient, it's
Mm,
almost like you'd have to lean into spirit for that one
mm.
because your
Yeah.
body, you're right, would get burned out.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
I think that's, and maybe that's a lesson for me too. Like 5 years ago, I didn't believe in the universe and the law of attraction and energy. And I didn't understand the law of momentum. I didn't understand any of
Quantum.
that. Yeah. Quantum. I didn't even know what that meant. Like quantum abilities and I didn't believe any of that. So I think I've definitely leveled a lot of that up. And I think that's again, for me, it's a lot about reflection. That's one of the awesome things about having these conversations is I never leave the same as I came. So like I'm always going to be now after this. It's like, well, okay, why did she say that? Did she see something I didn't see? Interesting. Okay. What does that mean? So I appreciate the reflection.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say, and then I won't put you on the spot anymore, is I also have to wonder if maybe one of the impacts you will have through that keyword is somebody who's watching you that can't see that light at the end of the tunnel, but because you've modeled it and you've shown them what's possible, you've then changed their reality.
Mm, I
Yeah.
hope so. I hope so. That's the reason I share as openly as I do. Again, a lot of the things that I'm sharing are scars, not open wounds. So I feel safe sharing them. And you've made me feel very safe here as well. But the other part of it is I believe somebody needs to hear it. I believe somebody needs to hear it. I do.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And the other reason why I'm kind of lingering on this point for a moment is because, um, so obviously some of my listeners are in English speaking countries, but to my surprise, others are in BRICS nations. And I always wonder, what is someone listening in Brazil, India, Russia, etc.? What are they're tuning in and they're listening
Mm,
and I think they're looking for something. And and if they can't have this conversation with, like, let's say their family of origin or their immediate community, then and they need to see that light at the end of the tunnel, and you
yeah.
speak into resilience. Woo.
That's the goal. That's the goal. The beautiful thing about your life's experience is your life experience is unreasonably unique, but it's also at the same time super common. It's unique to the way you've lived life and it's unique to the experiences you've had, but it's probably not unique in the struggles you've had. So it's almost like, how does my story connect with somebody who has a similar story, but not the same? I think we're all looking for that relatability of, I didn't go to college, so I'm not a genius. Most of
Mhm.
what I have is because I've just worked really hard and tried to be humble, and
Well,
somebody out there will connect. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, but you can't ever doubt homespun common sense.
That's fair. That's fair. And I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful for that. I would not go back. If I could go back and go to college, I wouldn't. So it's not a regret I have. But I also understand that helps me connect with people who didn't necessarily go to there and they took a similar path.
Yeah, there's something also about the human spirit that when there is nothing else, they have to lean into that.
Mm,
And that is the only thing that's going to pull them through because
yes.
nothing in the physical realm would make sense.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's things like war that are happening around this realm, this planet, flat Earth, whatever. I'm not going to get into that topic here. But still, it's like in like there's war torn nations, there's post traumatic stress, there's trauma, there's things that people are going through where it's like it's real. It's the real
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need some inspiration,
Yeah,
right? Sometimes you just need to be pulled out of reality and think to yourself, wow, there is hope for a brighter future. And
yeah.
there's a million books out. A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl is a great book that's all about that. Like it takes you out of your reality and says, wow, there's a lot more to life than I'm currently seeing.
Hmm. Yeah, but it takes that bigger awareness to forgive that present day moment.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that's a real deep part. But this is how it starts. It gets to the point. This is a great thing. If you've gotten to any of Angelina's episodes and said, my brain cannot take this anymore, like I cannot go any deeper than we're currently going, that's great. That means you're growing. That's great. That's awesome. I've left so many conversations. The best way to explain it, and maybe you'll resonate, is just foggy. It's like my brain is kind of shut off. I cannot absorb any more information. But just like everything else, it's grown.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great insight. I think people can grow to a certain point and then it can be too much. And then if they
Yeah.
want to return, they can return to it then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Very nice. So what are some of the principles that you lean into personally when it comes to developing and designing your life's legacy?
I would say number one is humility. If I am going to help people, I cannot turn them off by having an ego. I think another one is patience. I understand that my life experience and my human experience and my standards for self aren't necessarily going to be that of other people. And if I'm going to impact people, I have to connect with them first. Charity is a big one for me. That's a huge thing for me. I try to give back as much as I can, whether it's time, energy, effort, money, whatever it is, feelings, emotions. Those are three of the big ones. And then I think self-improvement. I understand at a deep level that I do not deserve anything that I do not work for. If I want to impact people, I must continue to get better. I have that belief. I think it's a powerful belief. I think it's an empowering belief for me. But yeah, self-improvement. If I don't get any better, I'm not going to be able to impact any deeper. And that's just, for me, that's just the way it is. And that's the conversation and the agreement I have with myself. Either A, Kevin, you do what it takes to get what you want, or B, you don't get it. And if you don't get it, you don't get to complain, because that's on you.
Yeah, well, that's powerful, because you have to kind of earn it.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. And if you don't earn it, it doesn't stay.
No. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are, and again, I won't go down the road, but there's a lot of people out there that are saying you deserve everything you want. That's not true. I don't agree. I disagree. You don't deserve it unless you're willing to do what it takes to get it. And I understand circumstantially, there's a lot of circumstances, and, you know, I am privileged to be a white man in the freest country in the world. I understand there's levels and levels, but you have to be very careful with the cookie cutter fortune cookie things that you're seeing, because I believe at a deep level, you deserve what you're willing to work for. If everybody deserved wealth wouldn't matter. It wouldn't be wealth anymore. It'd be something different, right? So that's a belief that I have. I understand it can be taken as somewhat hardcore, but I think it's empowered me.
Yeah, I think you might be pointing a flashlight to entitlement.
Yes, I cannot. Yeah. I struggle very much with entitlement. I do. It's very hard for me. One of the reasons my business partner and I get along so well is because we both kind of came from nothing. And if that wasn't the case, I don't think we would get along. We definitely wouldn't be here. I don't deserve to be the best podcaster in the world yet. Like, why do I? I haven't put in all the work yet. I don't deserve that. So yeah, entitlement is a struggle for me. And here's one of the reasons why. I'm not good at knocking people down. I work really well with people who don't believe in themselves. It's because it's easy to lift them up. Yeah. I'm not good at taking somebody and saying, hey, just so you know, you're not nearly as good as you think. Like, I struggle so much with that. It feels dirty. I don't like it.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That means you have a good heart. There was a childhood game called King of the Castle, and they push people off.
Yeah. I'm not good at that. That's not I don't like that game.
Yeah, well, good on you, because what a servant's heart in that sense. And I mean servant, like, not like you're weak, but as in, like, you get it, like you're here to serve, and then that karma, that positive karma, is going to come 10x back.
Yeah.
And you're going to be like, wow, where is this coming from? And these new doors open. But it's like you just kept giving love and giving love. And yeah. I think that's a better skill set to have than the King of the Castle skill set.
I agree. But, and I think we're actually really pivoting there, where for a long time, if you were going to win, you were knocking other people down. Now, I do not think that is a requirement.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you spoke into that. That's one of those things that I call like the invisible strings that come with success. Like, well, if you get too good, Kevin, I'm going to come along and knock you down, tear you down behind your back, right?
I'm sure there'll be people trying, but I'm going to get as good as I can. And that's the other thing too, is when I say good, I don't just mean in the like talent, skill, intellect. I also mean character.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. If you want to come try to tear me down, maybe I can learn something from you, and maybe you can learn something from me. And if it's for more impact, cool.
Yeah. Well, that's an honest conversation right there.
Yeah. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah. I think
people already do, right? There's already people that are trying to tear me down in some way, shape, or form. I think that's par for the course.
Yeah. I think another part of it is, let's say you've grown, and then it shines a flashlight on maybe where they haven't grown, and they wonder, well, what's Kevin's secret? How did he get there? How did he figure it out? Right?
Mostly just hard work. I think that's why I always tell people, like, I don't have a tip. I don't have a trick. I don't have a tactic. I don't have the hack. I can tell you what I've done.
Yeah.
I've worked very hard.
But people want that shortcut.
I know. But that's why people are constantly getting taken advantage of.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I'm convinced there's two types of people in this world. One, people who take pride in how easy it was for them.
Mhm.
Two, people who take pride in how much work it took. I think those are the main two people. And the second group of people, I think, is honest about the fact that it was really hard. The first group of people, I think it was hard, but I think they've convinced themselves that it was easy, and they try to convince other people that it's easy. I've just seen that so many times. And that's where the entitlement comes in. It's like, if you assume it was easy for you and you assume it should be easy for everyone, are you actually doing people a disservice by telling them it should be easy? As a podcaster, if
Yeah.
I told you this should be easy, I'm lying to you.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
10x the episodes you do. I know. I understand at a deep level that if you want to succeed, this will be hard. It will be. It's just the way it works. If I tell you, you know what, Angelina, you deserve to have the level of success we do. You really do. And
That's
it's
such
going to
a
come easy,
yeah,
you
that's such
know?
a mind manipulation.
Yeah, I think it is. And I don't think people are doing it necessarily intentionally.
Yeah, facetiously, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, there are people out there that are misleading people, whether they're mean to or not.
Yeah. Well, everyone loves that get rich quick, but then it's like,
Yes.
here's the axe, get to work. And they're like looking at you like, I don't want to do that for 8 hours. And you're like, but
Right.
I've done it for 1,800 hours.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I appreciate the conversation because I think it's important.
Yeah. I wanna share one quick thing, and then I'm
Please.
gonna move on to the next question. I know we need to wrap at the top of the hour. I wanna share one, I don't know if it's a secret, but it's one thing that helped me, and maybe you can comment on one thing that helped you. I had this motto, and I don't know if it comes from Tony Robbins or who it comes from, but it was something along the lines of 51% of success is just showing up. So
Mm.
I thought, oh, well, I don't have to be perfect. I just have to show up. And so I just kept showing up.
Same. I would say you and I are very similar in that.
But some
I
people struggle with perfectionism, especially if they come from like a background where they faced constant criticism, or they came from a background that was elite,
yeah.
or yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, perfectionism and imposter syndrome are hard things. My question is, when's the last time you ever did anything perfect? You've never, you've never done anything perfect. You're not
Yeah.
going to start now, and so it's okay. And the people that put you down for not being perfect, were they perfect? I'm willing to bet they had way more problems than you realize. Now, if you could look back in retrospect, I'm sure they weren't.
Yeah. Well, that's that envy piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because how dare that person, and especially if they think, oh, that person doesn't deserve it. Yeah. Now we're back to the
Yeah.
King Castle. Okay. So in closing, I know I wrote down what would you like your legacy to be. I think you've already spoken into that. So maybe I could ask you, what do you think, your values are that you would get to honor? I know you've spoken about like self-improvement, charity. Is there anything else that because I know you've done the inner work, that you could speak into, whether it's like core values, core aspirations, just to kind of
um,
round it out?
I just think I naturally go back to humility. I think that I would say two things: humility and self-awareness. Humility of, no matter how good you get, you never were that good before. So like, I might
Mhm.
be the best I've ever been today, but yesterday I wasn't as good as I am today, and I didn't start here. It's so important to understand that. And just because I'm good at what I do doesn't mean I should be mean to other people. That doesn't make any sense. It's not fair. And then I think the other thing is like self-awareness of, how do I show up? The reason self-awareness is so important is because you're never the same day to day. And if you don't understand that you're maybe getting a little bit worse, we'll just use worse as a word, when it comes to health and fitness. Self-awareness is you saying, oh, I'm not as good as I used to be because I'm not doing what I used to do. Okay, wow, it's really important that I start making new habits. But on the other end, you have to understand that as you level up, you become more confident. And then your confidence becomes a tool that you don't necessarily know how to use. Self-awareness is, how do I use that? So yeah, humility and self-awareness, I think they're two superpowers that if you can practice, you'll get far in life.
Yeah, very cool. And and any thoughts about how a listener could reach you, your website to the Next Level University?
Sure. I always suggest people listen to the podcast. So Next Level University, we do 7 episodes a week, an episode in your pocket every single day for free from anywhere in the world. That is our jam. We're on all the podcast platforms as well as YouTube. And then if you want to chat with me, you can send me a message on LinkedIn or Facebook. My name is Kevin Palmieri, and then at Never Quit Kid on Instagram. It's my handle.
Beautiful. That is lovely. Thank you, Kevin, so much for speaking into your legacy today and bringing the intention of being able to leave here with a new awareness about your legacy that you didn't have when you arrived. So thank you so much. I'm going to read out my closing paragraph, but I just wanted to just honor the fact that you spoke real life into this subject because it is from the ground up, and it's not necessarily something that just happens overnight or in an instant. It's all of it. It's the pain, it's the struggle, it's the rite of passage, it's the endless hours looking at a topic in 8 different angles to grow from it and make the ordinary extraordinary.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words very much, and you are truly wonderful. I'm glad we did this on this wonderful Saturday for sure.
Yeah, okay. I'm just going to quickly read out the closing paragraph. So, in closing, I'm Angelina Carleton, the hostess of the Design Your Legacy podcast, as well as the founder to Legacy Planning, a boutique advisory firm based out of Beverly Hills, California, but international in those I coach. I hope to dive deep into subjects that can help a person define, develop, and execute their legacy, and continue to scour the landscape for those who can be great resources to every dimension of your legacy. Whether you find yourself with new wealth or generational wealth, may the content on this channel be an anchor in any storms ahead. We do our best to provide original content for your intellectual and emotional curiosity. Thank you for joining us today. And remember, if you're listening on YouTube, to like and subscribe, or if you're tuning in on Apple Podcasts, to rate and review. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, Kevin, for speaking into your legacy.